Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening to everyone. We have a lot of players and organizers to be or current organizers joining us across the United States, and we are really extremely happy that you could join us tonight. First and foremost, I would like to thank Carol Meyer and US Chess Federation for their support in putting this webinar together. And I would like to introduce the amazing team that's going to make this happen. We have Ryan Wallace here, who's the part of the US Chess Executive Board. He's also a senior TD, national arbiter, and a national master, and a club owner himself. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
And also with us, Glenn Panner from Chicago. He owns Chess Weekend Chess Organization. He's a national TD. He's also a FIDE arbiter and the 2018 Organizer of the Year. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you, Judith.
We are very happy that you guys here. And finally, but not least, we have Corey Kornick here, who's also a national TD. He was the TD of the Year in 2017, and he's an international arbiter. And these international FIDE arbiter and national, these are FIDE titles, obviously. So welcome, Corey. I'm really happy that you joined.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And my name is Judit. I'm the chair of the clubs committee. I reside in Northern California. I'm part of Mechanics Institute Chess Club. I'm a senior TD and FA. I'm also the organizer of the year in 2017. So welcome everyone. The four of us will try to answer any question you might have. We have a chat window open, so please feel free to put in any questions you might have. All four of us will try to cover the chat whenever we are not talking and taking turns. If you feel that one of your questions got lost, please reiterate them, post them, and we'll try to cover every question. At the end also, we will have time for final questions as well. Let's see if I can, there you go. So when I came up with this webinar idea, I had a few friends in my mind who are great chess players, and they were really eager to start a chess club, and they started gathering their friends, and they really needed help how to start a chess club. And I felt that this is the time when we are stuck at home, we should be helping others to prepare. So when we are opening up again, let's start more and more chess clubs around the US, and so we can grow the number of chess clubs and help you guys, so guide you guys how to do this and what to do to start the tournaments, because a number of tournaments, it is essential to grow the number of tournaments and grow the number of members of the US Chess Federation. So this is mostly for those who have started a chess club. You have players who are coming and playing every single week, hopefully. And what are the next steps? This is the time to take it to the next level. So we will cover how to establish an affiliate status with US Chess. We will also cover how to plan for tournaments, whether that's small or mid-sized, the logistics is all the same. How to plan for a tournament, how to cover tournament logistics. Very important, how to advertise your events. What are the things that you have to think of on the day of the tournament, and what are the post-tournament things that you have to pay attention in order to close the show and provide an excellent service at the end of the day. So let's jump on to the first topic, that is how to establish an affiliate status and why is it good for you. Establishing an affiliate status has a lot of advantages, and I will actually be covering that on the next slide, but it's actually very easy. You have to go to US Chess website. You can choose between regular affiliate, scholastic affiliate, or college affiliate. Decide on a really good name. know your address that you want to put in, and pay a small fee, and it's done. It's actually very simple. And once you've done that, you will establish an affiliate status with US Chess. You also should establish an affiliate platform login. And I put in a really quick insert of what our affiliate looks like, just to show you how many useful resources you might have on this website, on this web login. You can process memberships, tournaments, and so on. And we will cover all this. And you have a lot of really good information on this page. So I highly encourage everyone, once you establish the affiliate status, then go and establish this platform login. Let's go through the benefits of what the affiliate status would give you. Well, you would get the monthly subscription of Chess Life and the bi-monthly of Chess Life Kids if you don't already get it. You can take on the role of processing some of the memberships for your players. Why is it important? It's important because sometimes players are not so eager logging in and processing in themselves, and tell them, I'll do it for you. And it's easy for them, it's a good customer service, and you also get $3 for each membership. I know it doesn't seem a lot, but it's a commission that you will appreciate at the end of the year. And you also have access to the online supplemental ratings, which is very useful when you're a TD as well. You don't have to look up every player. You can use that rating supplement that you download. The affiliate status actually gives you the right to run US Chess rated tournaments. Otherwise, you won't be able to, and you can submit it through the platform. One of the most important benefits is you can purchase so-called email blasts. That means if you have a message that you want to send out to the players in your area, you can log into your affiliate platform, you can design a so-called flyer, and you can filter in, and you can tell US Chess, I would like to send this flyer to a specific range of players, whether that's close to your location, or you can filter by age, by rating, by how active the players are. Yes, you have to pay for this, but this is relatively cheap compared to the amazing benefit that you can reach players that you don't know, but they are US Chess members. The other very good service is the TLAs, so-called Tournament Live Announcements. We will get to the specifics of TLAs a little bit later, but this is a very useful tool for any of the organizer to list your event, whether you list it in the magazine or you list it online. That's up to you. The online is free, so if your budget is very low, opt for a free one, online one at first. If you have a little bit of budget for it, then opt for the magazine TLA and have it in the magazine, so that whatever the players are receiving in the mail early in the month, your tournament will be listed at the end. So these are the benefits, and it's really beneficial for any organizer to establish the affiliate status and to really use these tools. And at this point, I would like to hand over to Ryan, who will tell you the basics of how to plan a tournament.
Yeah, thank you, Judith. My name's Ryan Velez, and I run a lot of tournaments in Kentucky. I'm the Kentucky Scholastic Coordinator, so I run everything from like the state tournaments down to like just a weekly Monday night tournament. So we do a bunch of different size of events, and like Judith said not too long ago, a lot of this is the same thing whether you're organizing a really small tournament or a really large tournament. Just the scale changes, but the principles are the same. But anyway, the most important thing you have to consider when trying to organize a tournament or a club or anything of that sort is the location. I call it chess vision. When I go into, like, when I walk into restaurants and stuff, I'm like looking and I'm like, oh, I could run a tournament here. And some places I'm like, no, I can't run a tournament there. But you just kind of have to get a feel for it. I would say, like it says on the slide, about 20 square feet per player or maybe per game is a good rule of thumb to kind of go by. And that's not as much as it sounds for those who may not visualize that very well, but it's a good rule of thumb.
Ryan, could I pop
Yes.
in there just for a second?
Oh yeah, no problem, Glenn.
For most tournaments, 20 square feet per player is a good number to budget. It depends on the shape of the room. That could impact a little bit. If you're doing a tournament that's scholastic and has a lot of little kids, you can go down to about 15 feet per square player because they take up a little bit less space. But 25 feet per player is a lovely amount. So it really depends on how much space you have, how many players, but it's a good rule of thumb to plan around.
I agree. I know another tip that's actually not on the slides, when you have lots of younger kids, in the US chess rulebook, we have a range of acceptable boards, like piece sizes and boards and stuff. And for the little kids, I actually use slightly smaller boards than normal too, and that saves a bit of space too. And it's for them, they love it because they're, it's smaller. So that's another thing that people can think about. But most importantly, when you're looking at the space, you want to consider like noise level, are bathrooms convenient? Are bathrooms in a different building? I've had that happen to me before too. Is lighting good or bad? Hours of availability. And probably one of the most overlooked things is the type of furniture. For example, if you contact a site and they're like, yeah, we can run your chess tournament, and then you show up the day of and it turns out they have nothing but giant circle tables, that's not going to run your tournament very well. So always inquire about what tables they have, and that will help you determine if you need to get additional tables, bring your own tables, or find a new location.
There's a few, sorry to hop in on you again, Ryan.
That's fine. No, that's okay.
And a few buzzwords you need to know when it comes to the type of furniture. If they mention classroom tables, those refer to 18-inch wide tables, which generally aren't, they're not wide enough to put games on. What you're looking for is ideally 30-inch wide tables are the best, whether it's 6 foot or 8 foot. That's going to depend on what they have. But, and if you run into a person asking, well, how would you describe the setup? The term in the event planning industry that's often used for it is picnic style, which refers to participants being on both sides of the table. And that's helpful for them.
Yeah, I agree.
And let me hop in.
Ahead,
Sorry. The other thing that originally I actually didn't have this bullet point in, and the guys told me, oh, this is very, very important, and I can't agree more. If you already have your club location, and ideally you meet once a week to play some chess with your smaller club, you always have to think of availability. So even if you have a location in mind and you just want to run a tournament for your club with an established club space, you always have to think about availability. So before planning, the very first thing you have to make sure you have a space, whether that's already you're using, just check on the availability, or you need to find a space and you keep in mind whatever Ryan and Glenn was telling you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So another thing to consider too is, when to hold a tournament. And here it says weekday evenings and weekend or daytime, but I would also extend, especially for people who are new, look for the tournaments that are going on in your area before you decide when to run your tournament. Because if you can avoid a conflict, that's always really great. Tournament organizers really like to work with other tournament organizers, especially in smaller cities where there's a lot of weekends available where there isn't chess happening. It's a little harder when you're in like New York, for example, but or Chicago, like Glenn. But anyway, always put a lot of thought into when you're going to run your tournaments. The time control in the rounds matters too. Newer people often don't consider this enough. Long time controls can take all day or multiple days even. So depending on what your goal is, really the time control you pick is really going to determine when and how long your tournament's going to be and that sort of thing. An often thing that people overlook too is when they're calculating how long their tournament will go, they're not calculating the delay or the increment. So for example, if you're calculating how long delay will take, if you have a 5-second delay, that's going to be approximately 5 minutes per player per game. So there's 2 players per game, so that's going to be 10 minutes. The other thing too is true about increment. Whatever your increment might be, if it's increment 10, increment 30, you need to adjust accordingly. Otherwise, you might accidentally run round 1 over top of round 2 as advertised, and you don't want to do that. And then in the middle there, it says schedule round times versus rolling schedule. The longer your time control, the more you need to consider scheduling your round times. If it's a fairly short time control, like say game 30, or even a blitz tournament, game 5 or 3 or something like that, you can do a rolling schedule or ASAP, meaning just as soon as all the pairings, or as soon as all the games are finished, you can basically just pair immediately and get everybody go in for the next round. So those are some very important tips. If you do schedule round times, post them so that everyone knows when the rounds are supposed to be. That's really important, or you're going to have people complaining that they didn't see when the next round was supposed to be. In addition to posting round times, you should post awards or rewards on your basically your flyer and anywhere that you put stuff, like if it's going to be in a TLA or if you're going to advertise on a website or anything like that. Always advertise your rewards so that people know what the possibilities are for themselves should they win. And there's a whole lot of different types of awards. It is not possible for us to list all of the different kinds. At one tournament, for example, I built trophies out of Legos, and anyone that tied, we split the trophy in half literally. So you can have a lot of fun and be creative with awards and things like that. And then the last thing on this slide, at least, is you want to decide on the registration interface. If it's a small tournament, people can just show up, tell you their name, and you can put them in the tournament. They'll pay their entry fee, and that's it. If it's a larger tournament, I would say if it's 50 players or more, you want to definitely have something in place online. You can do paper entries, but it takes a lot longer. There are a whole lot of different online registrations. I believe we have some of this on the next slide. Is that true, Judith? I don't remember.
Not the next slide, but the advertising slide. So 2 slides.
Okay, I'll hold off on covering the different kinds. So when I speak again a little bit later, I'll talk about the different types of registration interfaces. All right, who am I passing off to, Judith?
Glenn.
Glenn, okay.
Okay. So we covered a little bit about the floor plan. As Ryan said, selecting a playing space is the single most difficult and important job of an organizer. You want a place that has good lighting. You want to take into consideration the amount of players that can hold. That goes to the shape of the room. If there's any obstructions, such as like columns or something like that, and of course how quiet the room will be. Is your how far away are you from the bathrooms? Those are all things that are going to come up with players and a lot of questions. Some of the rules of thumb, as we mentioned, 20 square feet is a standard rule of thumb to make sure that your tournament isn't overcrowded. And I think what we're going to see in this post-COVID or during COVID environment is that we're going to see a lot more spacing than that. And we don't have a revised rule of thumb yet, but I think what we're going to see is we're going to see 1 game per 6-foot table instead of 2 games per 6-foot table. And that's something that we'll see that evolve as we go along. Chess equipment. this is one of the things that goes to advertising. In different parts of the country, what I've found is in some places, it's the organizer's responsibility that they're expected to provide the boards and sets. In other places, you'll see that players bring them. Advertise which way you're going to go, and as an organizer, it's good practice to make sure that you have some extra sets, even if players are going to provide their own. Board numbers, the US Chess website in the TD affiliate area has a wonderful template for printing off board numbers where you can put the time control in, the name of the event, and they look really nice. You can even print them off on, on stickers so they stick to the table or the tablecloth. And, it's another great affiliate benefit that you get. In terms of the other equipment, what I do personally is I have what I call my Go box. And my Go box is a big Rubbermaid container. In there, I make sure that I have a few extra clocks, just in case you need to put one on a game. Score sheets to pass out. I generally go to Office Depot and pick up a big package of pens or pencils. If you're having your tournament in a hotel, quite often the hotel has plenty of pens or pencils they can also provide. As a tournament director, it's always good practice to have your rule book on hand, and just other normal things that you'd have: paper, printer. Blue tape is important as it won't peel off the paint from walls, so you'd hate to be charged by your venue for doing damage to the walls. So the blue painter's tape is a great thing to have handy. And one thing that Judit does outstanding is she's the best I've ever seen in terms of sign design. And even though some players aren't the best at reading them, posting as much information as you can is a great key to having a successful event. Also, if the room is a very large room, having some type of speaker or PA system is a good practice to have. Your TD staff. If you're running a small tournament, let's say 25, 30 players, it's perfectly fine to organize and direct. The larger your tournament becomes, the better it is to have someone else to split the duties with. We'll get into it in a different slide, the differences between the organizer and tournament directors, and that's something that's good to know. US Chess also has a list of tournament directors that you can find in your areas if you need to hire a tournament director. And it's always good to, if you're a new tournament director, try working for some experienced ones, because you'll learn so much, and you won't you won't have that overwhelming feeling trying to reinvent the wheel. If you're organizing, I always try and overstaff my events. That way it's easier for players to find a tournament director if you need them. And if a tournament director needs to handle a dispute or leave the room, or even just have lunch, you want to, tournament directors, they're well rested and fresh, make less mistakes. It's good practice to staff accordingly. And volunteers are absolute gold. Definitely, whether it's setting up boards and sets before the event, a lot of times, especially at scholastic tournaments, there will be a lot of chess parents who have nothing to do. And, quite often they're lovely people that are willing to help if you just ask. So volunteers are gold, whether it's just, making the event run smooth, putting out notation sheets, posting pairings. There's always something that you can use them for. Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, and I guess don't underestimate the amount of work you have to do, and so try to delegate as much as you can simple things like putting out, as Glenn mentioned, it's yeah, it's very, very important. So the next slide, we are trying to cover, or we thought to cover, a few continue to cover some of the tournament logistics. And Corey here is an expert in this. So Corey, if you would like to talk about memberships.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judit. The tournament membership and U.S. Chess Federation membership is the single biggest issue that I feel many tournament organizers and directors have issues with when they're starting a tournament. Not only do the players have less of a familiarity with it, but it is something that, as a tournament director, you are required to ensure compliance with. So by going online, checking the member service area of the U.S. Chess Federation website is one of your best friends, especially if you're doing pre-registration. Even if the players say that they have current memberships, double check that information. Check for ID numbers, check for expiration dates. If with smaller events, usually it's only a few days prior to the event when they register. For larger events, it can be weeks or months before the event that they register. So having some chart that enables you to ensure that that is current and correct is extremely helpful, whether that's Google Sheet, whether it's something in the cloud, even if it's just the information in your tournament administrator software like WinTD or SwissSys, then that is extremely helpful. If you are doing things by hand, of course, have some sort of a document that will allow it to be checked by hand. Now, the ability to go ahead and update those memberships is another feature of the tournament director affiliate area, the red TD affiliate area we were mentioning. When you are logged in as either a director or affiliate, you have access to submit those memberships for your players. If they provide a membership form or the information for you to submit those, again, if you can do it before the tournament, all the much better, because that way you'll be able to provide either temporary renewal cards for them or provide them with the information stating that their membership has been renewed while the card is in the mail.
Okay, so then the next thing is give yourself and your volunteers time to set up. Oftentimes when we think about tournaments, we think, okay, yeah, first round starts at, let's say, 10 o'clock, so I get there around 9:30, and you don't really understand, or you don't really plan for setup time. So the earlier you get there, the more help you're scheduling, the easier it will be, because nothing better than to sit down for 10 minutes before the players come in and they start to look for the boards and sets. So schedule yourself a time to set up, as well as schedule help to clean up. At the end of the tournament, if it's a small tournament, you might not feel too tired. If it's a mid-sized or bigger tournament, you will feel tired. So if there's a new fresh help comes in just specifically for cleanup, I find that always very helpful and very appreciating the help that I scheduled. So just something to keep in mind. The other thing I wanted to mention and suggest everyone is start the practice of sending out a welcome email. A welcome email or orientation email, however you would like to phrase it. Basically have the email that has all the important information. This is key because then the players don't have to go to the website to see when the first round is, or for address, they don't have to search for address, because you put all these important information in the email. Parents and players, they appreciate this very much. They think as a good customer service, and these are key elements, I feel, in the whole organizing, to make sure that they come back, because ultimately you want to provide a good service, a good event, so that they come back. these are small things that you can do to make sure that they come back. The other day when we were planning for this event, I think, Glenn, you said that say what you're going to do and do what you say. I love this expression so much. And Corey said that, yeah, predictability, it's the most important. If you're gonna do something, say it and then actually do it. And then your event will go smooth and good.
One thing, if I could add to that,
yeah,
is the question comes up fairly often. You know, how do you have a successful event? And to me, the single most important thing is getting the round started on time. It sounds like such a small detail, but it sets the tone. It sets the mood for the entire tournament. People know what to expect, and it's like what Corey said, predictability is key. You'll find players are more relaxed, and the event runs smoother when, you know, you do those things and run things on a tight schedule.
And the last point of this slide is to make sure that what are your local emergency contacts. It's very important to know the phone number, not just 911, but if you want to make sure where's the closest hospital, where's the closest fire station, or what are the numbers that you have to call in a hotel or in a venue where if you have an emergency with the building. So just make sure that you plan for that. And let me stop and say something that Carol commented on, the membership. I didn't know this and I just tried it. So if you go to the membership search page on the US Chess website and just copy paste a bunch of IDs, it will actually list all the players. This is really cool. So thank you, Carol. And I guess we are all learning even now.
Yeah, I did the registration check for these webinars the first time manually and vowed I was going to find a workaround to not have to do that again. And much to my surprise, a simple paste, no commas, no other delimiters needed, just a list of IDs, and it returns a lot of information.
Yeah, so it's really, really cool.
Judith, before we move on, I actually do have one other question I wish to address from Mr. Arnold, was talking about Wi-Fi access and its need as a director, especially being on site. If you're hosting it at wherever your site is, whether it's a school, whether it's a hotel, whether it's any venue, always recommend on having some sort of backup. Sites are notoriously bad at providing Wi-Fi, even though it's gotten more and more prevalent. Always having your own either mobile hotspot, using your cell phone as a hotspot, using somebody else's cell phone as a hotspot. Again, especially if you're organizer and director, you're going to be probably getting phone calls. Therefore, relying on your own personal cell phone as your hotspot to do everything online is very difficult. You need to make sure that you have enough separate devices, one that will allow you to check memberships, one that will allow you to talk to players and registrants, one that will allow you to handle anything else you need. So having multiple devices, multiple ways and backups to make sure that you'll be able to access that online capacity is quite paramount.
Yes, so on advertising for your tournament, I think the most important thing on this slide is to understand that you should advertise your tournament in numerous ways, not just one way, because some people prefer flyers, some people prefer online advertising, some people prefer social media. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can do it. You don't necessarily have to do everything, but I definitely recommend doing, you know, a couple of things and try them out. And some things may work better or worse in your area, and you'll figure that out as you go. On the first one, making an attractive and informative flyer, I have had a lot of success making very simple flyers that point to a website where there's more detail. And the idea is that you can pique interest that way, and anyone who's interested can go get the finer details of things if they want to. I recommend that for anyone who's starting out. Online advertising can be a little trickier. It depends if you have your own website or not. There's the idea of the State Association Clearinghouse. Essentially, the clearinghouse is anybody who's running a tournament in your state, generally, especially people who know what they're doing, will advertise on the state association website. So if there's 10 tournaments going on the Saturday that you wanted to run a tournament, maybe picking a different Saturday might be a good idea, for example. So checking the clearinghouse is good, and then trying to advertise on said clearinghouse is also good. US Chess e-blasts are very affordable and simple to do. I think it's like a penny an email, and you get to pick the like the filters, like age, location, player activeness. There's all kinds of filters that you can do.
Ryan, if I can hop in on the email blast, because this
no
is
problem.
something I feel really strongly about. And like I said yesterday, this is, I think, the single best tool that US Chess has ever brought forward. It is a nickel a name. And when I go to organize a tournament in a new location, and this same thing goes for those of you who might be organizing your very first tournament, the email blast also has a demographic search. So if you put in a zip code, for example, and you could say, okay, I think I can draw players from within 20 miles of this zip code. When you're designing your tournament, you can use it by putting in that demographic search, seeing how many rated players are within 20 miles of that zip code, and maybe you find out, wow, there's only 50 people within that area. I'm not going to be able to draw 100 players like I thought I might have been able to, or maybe quite the opposite. Wow, I didn't realize that there's 250 rated players that close to me. Maybe I should plan on more than 20 people showing up. So it allows you to do a demographic query, and it's a terrific tool. Then once you've designed your tournament and you want to advertise it, the way you go through and you put together a document that gets approved by US Chess and sent out is a very, very smooth process. And a nickel a name, it's a tremendous bang for your buck. Even if you only get 3 or 4 players from it, odds are it's more than paid for itself.
Yeah, I agree. It's very, very handy. I think I said a penny, so I was wrong. It was a nickel. I think Glenn's done a few more of them than I have. So, but anyway, in terms of online registration, it's really, really helpful to have some kind of platform that manages and handles registrations. We have several of them listed here. These are different people in the chess community use different ones. Eventbrite, King Registration, Online Registration, and Joomla, and your own website. Like I actually ran a website on webs.com and then webstarts.com, both of which have software online for taking in registrations. But Eventbrite, King Registration, the ones that we have here, they organize it a lot better and let you manipulate the data better. The big advantage to King Registration, it's actually made by a chess player named Bill Buckless, and he's also a tournament director. And that one actually allows you to take in registrations and import them straight to either SwissSys or WinTD. And that's pretty handy. But I use a platform called Amelia. That one's a bit more expensive, but it allows us to do something very similar, actually. So you just have to search around for them. If you're going to run super small events, you might be able to find like some of these have like free versions and you can use that. But once you start getting, 50 to 100 people interested in whatever you're doing, they will, it stops being free. So I definitely recommend trying out different ones. And there's a lot of YouTube videos that explain the differences between them all. So I recommend looking into those as well.
If you choose to use one of the ones designed specifically for chess, like a King registration or an online registration, there's a bunch of hidden features to them that really help you. First, the back end of those players have to put in their contact information, whether it's an email address and or a phone number. So during the event, if you get one of those games that ends and both players forget to mark up the result, you can go into the registration and you can look up the player's phone number, call them, so the event isn't delayed by a missing result, waiting until those players come back. It'll also do the work of checking to make sure that those players have current US Chess memberships, which is a nice feature as well.
Yeah, I agree. When you move into social media, if you're interested to try to advertise that way, two important things I recommend, especially for like Facebook and stuff like that. It's a good idea to always post links to your website, because anytime you can drive people back to your website, that's going to help you in a lot of ways. Another thing too is if you have a hashtag that goes with your tournament, that's really helpful, because if other people start using it, you can click on it and see what people are saying and sharing about your tournament, and that can be helpful for you as well. An email list is very important to maintain. I find a lot of people don't do that for smaller tournaments, mostly the ones where people just kind of show up and play. I'm a little guilty of this for my Monday night tournament. We don't always keep an email list because that tournament just has been going for 30 years. But it is good to have a mailing list. MailChimp is a great program. I use that. Constant Contact's a little more expensive than MailChimp, both of which have free versions up to a point. And I know like with, I think it's Hotmail allows you to do 300 emails and then it locks you out for a day. And then Gmail does 500. So there are free ways to do it. But again, if you start, getting some momentum and doing more and more, you might want to look into some of these more robust programs. All of them are fairly affordable in my opinion. And then lastly on this one, we have TLAs, or tournament life announcements. I think Judith was looking up a URL for some stuff too, and did you post it in the questions there, Judith?
Well, not yet, because
okay.
Yeah, not yet, but I'm trying to. But that's the demographic query, right?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
I have it here. I'm gonna type in. It's not that simple to copy paste. Yeah.
That's okay. Okay. So anyway, when you're advertising in the magazines, and Carol can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you want to get, for the print magazine, you want to advertise, or you want to do your advertisement 3 months in advance. You can't really do last minute with the print magazine, but the online stuff you can do within about a month, I think. Is that correct, Carol?
So I believe the online TLAs, once they're approved, they go up immediately. So
yeah, I know the online ones are immediately. The print ones,
I think there's substantially more lead time for
right.
So
Okay.
at least a couple months.
Yeah, the magazine
Right.
is always 2 months ahead. So
2 months. Okay.
So for example, next, so it's May 20th. It's always the 10th of the month. So next 10th is June. So June, you count 2 months. It will be in the August edition.
Right. Okay.
Try to keep the deadline to keep John happy, obviously, and. But whenever you submit your TLA for the paper magazine that will come out 2 months from then, Joan also puts it up online immediately. So with paying for a magazine TLA, which costs money versus the online is free, but you also get the nicely formatted online TLA. It's actually different. If you click on that link I sent to you in the slide, you will see there's difference between the magazine TLA online versus the online TLAs. The magazine TLAs show up in full detail. Whatever you see in the magazine will show up on that web page of US Chess. The online TLA, it's only a link and you have to click on it. So it's also a little bit of, it's a nicer format, I feel. If you have the magazine TLA online too, it's a little bit better, I feel.
Yeah, it's also faster, like Carol said too. I agree. Those are generally the ones that I go for when I do use them. Okay. Well, I think that's all for this slide.
Yeah, yes. So this is actually a sample TLA. our wonderful contact at US Chess is Joan Dubois. She's wonderful. I think everyone can testify to that. And she's very helpful and super fast in responding. I think we just put this in for reference, right, Ryan?
Yeah, the important thing on this slide to know, there's two things that are important. The first thing is chess has a lot of shorthand lingo, and it can be a little annoying at first to learn, but you'll get it over time. Pretty much any chess person who has been around for a year can read a lot of it. We also have a glossary of terms at the end of the presentation to help with that. It would take a bit too much time to explain it right now, but you all, I believe, already have this slideshow. And then if you have any questions, of course, our emails are on the first slide, and you can always email us and ask as well.
Yep. Okay, so now that you planned your tournament, you advertise your tournament, you have the day off. You wake up and you want to make sure that everything is going smooth. So Glenn and I wanted to make sure to cover some of the things that you have to keep in mind on the day off. Glenn, do you want to take a stab at it?
Sure, I'll start off. What I do before the first round starts is I first write down the announcements. That way I don't miss anything important. There's a lot of information you want to convey, everything from where the bathrooms are to what the round times are. There's a lot of important information, but one thing you have to keep in mind is players are really excited when they get to the tournament. And them paying attention to your initial announcements, you have well under a minute, maybe 30 to 45 seconds of players listening before they either tune you out, start talking to their opponents and friends. So make sure you don't bury the lead. You go in quick with concise announcements, the things that are important for people to know, and you keep the announcements brief. Judith, do you want to go, or you want me to keep on continuing?
Go one more, and I take over after that. Okay?
Okay, we'll have you up just in case, just in time for the signage, which is your specialty. So it's important to have staff on site at all times. Obviously, as a tournament director and an organizer, you might need to go get a drink of water, use the restroom, get lunch. But it's important that tournaments have someone that they can talk to and find. You know, chess control is, you know, what's the role? That's kind of a information kiosk is the best way to put it. It's where players can come up before the tournament and make sure that all of their information is correct, or to request a buy, to register if they haven't done so already, or if you're having a side event after the event, to register for that, to ask questions. It's a great place for people to learn the information that has to do with the tournament in a way that they feel comfortable with.
Hey, Glenn.
Yeah.
I want to share my definition of chess control because I think just so that people can get a feel for how important it is. I always tell people the back room where they run the computers for making pairings, that's the brain of the tournament. The main part of the tournament where all the players are playing, like the TD staff and all that, that's like the body of the tournament. And chess control is kind of like the immune system. Like when things go wrong, often it filters right through chess control, and they figure out where this problem needs to go so that they can fix it. And I think that that's a good way to think about it, because a lot of tournaments do not function very well if they don't have a well-established chess control.
It certainly is. And the larger the tournament, or in the case of a Scholastic, the more first-timers you have at a tournament, the more important it is. You want to have your singular best customer-facing person, your customer service person. That's where you want them, because that's where they're going to talk with the most amount of parents, coaches, players. And as we're going through this, I kind of feel funny about it, because The one person that hasn't weighed in on this yet is Corey, who's exceptional at this role.
Well, and actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Glenn, because I was wanting to chime in about chess control exactly for that reason. Chess control, many of you, if you've been to the Nationals, have met me at chess control. That is my standard post over the last few years. And what chess control is, in my definition, is that it's the customer service arm of the tournament. A lot of times where you have the tournament director who's on the floor, who's making the rulings, who's doing the pairings, a lot of times it falls to either volunteers or the organizer to be staffing that chess control. And really, it is that customer service part of the job as a director, as an organizer, that we are doing, because it gives a centralized point where people can ask questions, where people can provide information, pose problems, and get things answered. And the more that you can provide that to your players, the greater time they'll have, the more enjoyment they'll have, and the more likelihood they'll come back to your tournaments in the future.
Thank you, Corey. The other thing we mentioned here is to feed your staff and volunteers. That's often a very basic thing that you might want to just power through because you're in the heat of organizing a tournament and you're not feeling the hungriness, but don't forget to eat and don't forget to schedule food for your staff and for your volunteers. Very important. And they will thank you later and they will come back work for you next time. So very important. A lot of questions, or some people are asking, well, you have a small tournament. Yes, you can be the organizer, be the tournament director, and also play. You run a risk of not doing all the roles to 100% satisfaction that you would like to, because you can't really focus on your games because you have to solve a TD problems, or you can't really do the organizer part, post signs and solve other problems, bathroom floods and missing kids or things like that, or kids are just bleeding nose and things like that can come up as a natural tournament. But so you have to think of the risk. Oftentimes when I'm pulled in for a house game, I tell my opponent, I'm fine if you don't stop my clock, but I will have to stand up if there's anything I have to make a ruling. And if you have a small tournament, the organizing during the tournament is not so important. As Glenn mentioned before, the bigger the tournament, the less inclined you want to do both the tournament director and the organizer role. Why is it important? Because there are always situations that come up and you have to be ready to make adjustments. Whether you need more signs or you may need to make a form, you need to solve a problem. Again, like flooded bathrooms, those are very, very common things that organizers have to deal with. So in order to focus on these and have time to sit down in your computer and make the form or make the new signs, you can't focus on the game, or you can't focus on make sure that the players are playing by US chess rules. So you always have to make sure that you consider all the circumstances and make it the best decision that's best for your tournament and for your players. The other thing that it's really style, whether on the tournament day, if you have time and if you're not the TD or if you're not playing, you can process all those memberships. The big advantage of processing the memberships and make sure that they are all current and renew all the memberships that are not current is that in case any information is needed, the players are right there and you can ask them. Oftentimes, if a renewal player, their USCF membership expired, if you need to renew, they just pay you. Yes, this is my USCF membership number. This is my name. And then comes back a US Chess saying something is missing. Birth date is missing, or the address is invalid. And then you have to go back to the player and ask. It's always good to have catch the players right there.
Judith?
Yes?
I would like to interject something. Eric Arnold is asking a reasonable question. He said he's feeling like he's getting some mixed signals from us because we're suggesting, what seems like costly things and running a big tournament when we're also supposed to be kind of talking about smaller tournaments. So what I'd like to say is, a lot of the stuff that we've suggested today, there are free versions of. Like advertising on Facebook doesn't cost you anything. I don't mean buying an ad on Facebook. I just mean making a post saying, hey, I'm running a tournament. And then you put a link. Things like that. A lot of the stuff on this, there are free versions for smaller organizers. And, if you just want to run a 10-player tournament, obviously you don't necessarily need to take out a TLA or pay for advertising for an e-blast, that kind of thing. It all comes down to the expectations of what you want to do. And, so I think he specifically was saying the cost of registration and money management, equipment and boards, pieces and clocks, things like that. Again, if you're wanting to run a small tournament and you think you can provide chess sets, not a problem. If you can't do that, tell your players in advance they got to bring their own chess boards and sets and stuff like that, and clocks and anything relevant. The only thing that I would recommend that the TD always try to provide is notation and pens. That's kind of a bare minimum thing, and that's because a lot of rulings that you might need to make will require your players to be notating. So if you're providing the notation, they can't say, oh, I don't have a pen. Well, you already have one for them. So anyway, the idea is you don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars getting your tournament going, hiring staff, if your intention is to have, 30 players or less, that kind of thing. So it just keep the scope of your tournament, realistic to what you're capable to do, and, stay within your own budget and costs and everything. And I think you'll be okay.
Very good points, Ryan. And the other thing I wanted to mention is use the volunteers. So if you don't have capital to hire staff, try to get volunteers as much as you can for setup, for cleanup, for everything you can think of. Chess moms, they like feeding the staff. They enjoy that. So then you don't have to pay for the TD food and things like that. So be creative, especially when it comes to a small community club tournament. There's a lot of ways which you can be creative. Glenn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say just to give an idea of what some of the costs are, because anytime you're going to do an event like this, budgeting is important. And Eric does raise a good point that if you're just starting out, some of the costs could be daunting, even if you do get volunteers. You can always pair by hand if you learn how to do that, but there's a huge time savings in using the computer. And the pairing programs, you're looking at roughly $100 to $150. That's, I wouldn't look at it as though you're going to recoup that the first time you run a tournament. It might take 5 or 10 tournaments. And when you look at it and say, okay, well, that wasn't that big an expense when you divide it over time. Like was mentioned, when it comes to equipment, if you don't have it, just advertise that players need to bring their own equipment. For tournament directors, if you can't find one, who's willing to work with you for free, and you're worried about losing money doing it, explain to them what you're trying to do. Find one that, find one that might work on a per player fee, and say, okay, well, I don't know how many tournaments how many players I can draw or how much I can afford, but I can give you, $3 per player or $5 per player. That way you have a fixed cost, and it's helpful. but you know, it can be a little daunting when you're first starting out. There's no question about it. One other thing I want to mention really quick is if you're an organizer working with the tournament director, and I see that Judith is getting to that, so I'm gonna
No.
I'm moving you along.
I was like, wow, that is an awesome segue. You know, the single most important thing is communication between the organizer and the tournament director. So you know who's responsible for what.
Yeah. Are you here?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, I don't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to show you that you can ease into, whenever you're finished with your thought, you can ease into this slide, because I think both you and me this is our somewhat pet peeve, knowing what's the difference between organizer and tournament director. Yes, if you have a small club and you're just starting out, you're probably gonna assume both, and that's perfectly fine. If you grow your event a little bit, then you need to separate. We always say that organizer is responsible everything outside of the playing hall, and tournament director is responsible everything inside the playing hall, well, give or take, right? The inside the playing hall, obviously, the lighting, the temperature, the setup, it's all organizer responsibility. Tournament director is the one that's responsible for the game itself, right? Making the rulings, decisions, solving the problems between the players, and solving any dispute. When you are one, then it's not a problem. When you are performing both of these duties, then it's not a problem, because you know what to cover and you don't need to discuss. When you are the organizer and you hire a tournament director, or you have a tournament director friend who will run the event, make sure you talk with them and decide who's doing what. Make sure that you know who's bringing the equipment, who's bringing the smaller items, those to go out items, because both the organizer and the tournament director probably have these go box, but at the same time, it's never a bad thing to make sure about who's bringing that. One of the most often asked question is the printer, because TDs like to use, tournament directors like to use their own laptops, and with that they usually bring their own printer. But oftentimes organizers should provide a backup printer or the backup toner, as Corey mentioned. The other is the announcement. I find it's either the tournament director or the organizer responsibility. It's always good to double check who's gonna do that. Whoever's better at announcing should actually take it, because it's, as Glenn said, it's very important. And also the submitting of the tournament. Some TDs like to submit the tournament. The other TDs say, well, organizers can take care of it because they are TDs themselves, usually. But of course, if you're not, then that's not the case. Glenn, is there anything else you want to add to this?
I think you covered that part really well. One thing I would like to hop in on is a question from Eric, which is an organizer duty, which is finding venues for your event. How can you find them? What are the best ways? Where, finding a low cost, suitable site is one of the more important things you can do. Do you mind if I field that right now?
Absolutely, it's good.
Okay. So back when I first started organizing and playing, a lot of tournaments would be held in municipal buildings, such as park district buildings, things like that, and schools. And they were, in some cases, free or very low cost. On occasion, you can still find that. However, those venues, have really increased in price. Sometimes you'll have to pay for the custodian to be there on overtime. Sometimes As pointed out, they often need insurance. They also, park districts have found that they can rent out their space to people having birthday parties for a lot more per hour than a chess tournament might be willing to pay. So let's talk about some other places. I know restaurants were mentioned, especially if they have a private room. Quite often they're willing to help out with that type of thing. I've seen tournaments at libraries. The one downside that you have to be careful about with libraries, even though they have great space and of course they're quiet, is that quite often libraries will not allow you to charge entry fees or give out cash prizes.
That's actually true of, at least in Kentucky, that I think it's a national thing, or many states, maybe not all, but you're
Right.
not allowed to use public space and charge an entry fee. So that's not unique to just libraries.
That's correct. Although, as I said, municipal buildings, I've never had a problem with that. But your point is certainly well taken. There are, if you're looking for places to hold tournaments besides hotels, which are the obvious, get in touch with your local convention and visitors bureau. They're a great resource. It's their job. They get funding, based on how many events they bring to an area. So they're in their best interest. It's free. They'll be very happy to help you. They might guide you to spaces like in a museum that has huge conference space that rarely goes used. Your local convention visitors bureau is a great place. Even sometimes your local ballparks and things like that have meeting space that you might not think of. So be creative when it comes to it. I've seen tournaments held at botanical gardens, for example, have some beautiful indoor spaces. So utilize those convention visitors bureaus. They're a great tool to have.
And they have a complete list of, or a very big list of all the businesses and venues. I know here in the Bay Area, it's a very useful tool to have that contact and check in with them every once in a while. The other wild idea that I had, I think maybe once or twice, is companies. Because companies usually weekends, they are not using the building. So if you find one employee who are willing to be there, so that the liability is not that, okay, they opening up, their meeting space might be used if there are no computers and security issues. So just be creative and ask around and say, well, I'm just starting up. I need a space for free or very cheap so that we can get established, get the player base established and get the word out. And then people will help because they want to play, right?
Yeah, the most successful one that I've run, I didn't start the event. A now deceased friend of mine started the event, but there was a food court in a grocery store, and we used it, and the grocery was fine with that. We had to okay it with them, of course, but that ran for 10 years. I mean, and that was no rent.
And Sacramento, let's bring Sacramento Chess Club. They won the Chess Club of the Year, I think, in 2017, or 19, I can't remember. They are having they are meeting in a game store every Tuesday night. The Chess Club of the Year meeting in a game store every Tuesday night. And that's it. They don't have their own space. They just meet in the game store. And they have a back room. It's perfect. So be creative, right?
One other place that I've seen a lot of success with are VFW halls. And quite simply, they'd like to have events. And if you say that you'll give free entries to all veterans, quite often that's all they'll take. They'll give you free space in exchange for having activities that some of their members would enjoy.
I was going to chime in one last thing also regarding that. Just be honest. When you're talking with these event renters or managers of stores or locations, just be very honest and forthcoming about these are the types of space you're going to need. This is the type of numbers of people you're going to be bringing in. Just you want to work and provide correct information, because that way they'll be able to help you best as well.
And also
have you back.
communicate your needs. That's a big thing. If you're having a space where someone else is having a graduation party or another event with a DJ, you don't want, seriously, this happens all the time. You don't want to annoy the other event, and obviously you don't want them annoying your players. So, mention to who's ever in charge of the venue before you book, hey, noise is an issue with our players. Are there any other events scheduled at the same time that might be noisy, or can we ensure that this doesn't happen?
Yeah.
It's better to handle these things up front than the day of the event when you have nothing you can do about it.
Okay, so once you've done your tournament and the end of the day you cleaned out the space and you go home, either you do it in the evening, some TDs actually do it right when they are on site, but usually it's the day after, and Corey will walk us through what you have to do after the tournament.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's one of those where this is the post-tournament wrap-up duties are something that, over the course of even just my playing and directing career over the past 20 years or so, the time frame has gotten significantly shorter and shorter and shorter. There used to be a time where, experienced tournament directors would submit all of their tournaments from the previous month in one fell swoop by mailing off the paper copy to the National Federation offices. That cannot be done anymore. Like that, not only from a regulation standpoint, but I wouldn't want to face a month's worth of players and parents with pointed sticks and torches coming after me of why these games haven't been rated. So one of the ways in which you can work on providing excellent customer service for your tournament players is to get your tournament wrap materials finished as soon as possible. Next day is definitely understandable, especially if you're one of those one-hat tournament organizer, tournament director, negotiating everything. You're just going to be spent by the end of the day. And there's nothing more you want to do other than pack everything up, go home, and revisit it again tomorrow. That's okay. But if you do have the ability, if you do have the energy to continue doing these type of things at the same day will be something that your players will appreciate. Of course, we return back to the TD affiliate area platform. Now, this is something where, as a tournament director, you will have your own login for the TD affiliate area. We talked about earlier about how the affiliate will have one that you can do the queries and you can do the advertising and you can do the membership, forms. From the tournament director's perspective, you have to have a certified tournament director who also has access to the TD affiliate area in order to upload the tournament for US Chess Federation rating. So once you get that, you will either take the files that are made in your tournament administrator software, SwissSys, WinTD, or you will take the paper copies of the forms that you have used during the day to enter that information or upload that information into the TD affiliate area. Now, this does not take exceptionally long. Usually, if you have already handled your membership issues, if you have already handled anything that may cause problems over the course of your tournament, then this can become an extremely fast process, even for players from 8-player tournaments to a 280-player tournament. Will both be able to be handled in maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You go ahead and without going into a complete process of how to do this, and if you want a more detailed walkthrough, feel free to email me. I'll be glad to respond to anyone and everyone who wants more of detailed information on uploading or entering your files. But just to generally say, you upload the information, you go through a verification process of that information. Again, the computer will automatically check memberships, ensure that you have the correct information, and it'll even flag information that seems a little bit odd. If you have all Scholastic players and somebody who's an adult, it'll give that as a warning, something that needs to be checked, an alert, something that will just alert you to maybe this person isn't correct. If you have all the players from one state and somebody else who's visiting a relative and comes from 3 or 4 states away, the computer system will automatically flag that as something to be checked. So a lot of directors may just say, oh, I'm getting all these alerts, and not really just automatically override them. You can do that, but at your own peril. They're there for a reason, and they're there for a good reason. It's just to help ensure that you don't have problems that you would then have to manually contact the office about correcting down the road. So once you go ahead and enter that information, verify it, either you will go ahead and process that information directly and pay for it digitally with a credit card online, or you will release the tournament to the tournament organizer, at which point the tournament organizer would be able to go log into their TD affiliate area profile and submit the payments. That's especially if you have a tournament director who is separate from the organizer, who has been hired and does not have access to the financial accounts to pay for the tournament. Additionally, besides the actual rating of the tournament itself, you want to provide in your wrap email or as one of the posts at the end of the day, you want to go ahead and let your players know, again, the tournament will be up on the member service area of the U.S. Chess Federation. Also, they can sign up for email notifications if they have not already with the U.S. Chess Federation to receive an email from the Federation saying that their tournament result has been rated, which I personally find those a really great feature. So that way, not only is it cool for them to get, but it's also something that they aren't going to be bugging you about, going, hey, is this tournament rated? Has this tournament been rated? Has this tournament been rated? So that's just another nice way. And again, if you have your own website or some other location, you can post final standings, post prizes, and provide that information to your players. The sooner they can get that, the happier they'll be and the more willing they will want to come back to your next event.
And I guess the last thing I want to mention in the slide is just as I'm a huge fan of the welcome or orientation email, I'm just as much a fan of the thank you email, because it basically runs up the event. The attendees, the players, the parents, they feel complete. They feel that you started the event, you carried out the event, and you closed the event in a really nice manner, and it's a good customer service. In the thank you email, post the link to the final posting. If your tournament has been submitted, you can extract the link where the rating of the tournament will be, or if you send out the email an hour later or next day, then you can include that link. Don't forget the survey, very useful tool, because you always have to adjust, or you should adjust based on customer feedback. So that's a very useful. Emails, make them sign up for your email blasts, because that's how you can grow your events and do this. I think I also wanted to mention sometimes during the presentation is that we are not covering anything online tournaments. We did that 2 weeks ago, and so go to the YouTube channel and look at that. There are slightly different guidelines in terms of submitting timelines. So online tournaments, you should never submit the same day. You should wait for fair play screening, and also the cash prize tournaments are a little bit different guidelines for that. So just please reference that webinar for anything online tournament related. And we also discussed several platforms. So I hope that will be a very useful tool for you during this lockdown, how long ever it will still take. I think at this point we are done all what we planned for to say. Thank you again for US Chess for their support. Special thanks for the US Chess Trust and the foundation, the Flower Foundation, provide the funding for the closed captioning. It's a really wonderful feature and service that they are providing. Anyone that has any questions, or the other panelists, do you guys want to say anything else?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and I thought the panelists did a really good job today.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. I really enjoyed being a part of this. There was a question that was posed in advance as to how a club level TD or new organizer should get started. The one piece of advice is, if you've gone to tournaments before, volunteer or ask if you can be on staff of an experienced organizer. You'll learn so much more than even a webinar like this. You'll get to see why things are done. You'll get to ask questions as things are going along. And there's no substitute for that type of an experience. And what I've found is most tournament directors and organizers are absolutely thrilled to share their knowledge. I know, anyone who wants to visit Chicago and be a part of one of my tournaments when they resume eventually, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to share.
I'll chime in and agree completely with you on that, Glenn. I think many of us who've been on the scene for many years, we absolutely love finding other directors who are interested in joining the fold and becoming tournament directors. I sometimes joke we want to welcome you all to thank you for signing up to join the crazy, because it really is a little bit insane sometimes what we do, but we love doing it, and that's why we're here. I also want to mention, in addition, there's excellent resources on the US Chess Federation website. There is a portion, if you go down to the very bottom of the website page, in their menu, you can find the forms section, FORMS, and there's a list of basically any hard copy form you could need to run a tournament: wall charts, pairing tables, information about how to utilize them, booklets on running chess clubs, booklets on running scholastic chess events, just a whole host of information that are all free downloads that you can utilize and use for your organization.
Yes, and that reminded me, we have another slide with 2 slides. The one is the useful links that we mentioned throughout the presentation. There's also the useful links for the organizers and TDs on US Chess's website. There's also a guide to a successful chess club. This is more establishing chess club and how to grow, but I think it's hopefully useful for anyone, gives ideas. I know Ryan and Paul Covington, who's also in attendance, and Abel and myself have worked on this, and Sophia Rode worked on this document, and it gave me a lot of pleasure to put this together, so hopefully it will be useful. The other link I put in is the accessibility guidelines. You want to be inclusive, and some of the guidelines we worked on with Janelle, with the leadership of Janelle Losoff from Las Vegas. It's in there, so also a good read for anyone who would like to make sure that their events are inclusive and serving all players, and very useful hints and tips and tricks how to make that happen. And the last slide that you have is the TLA term glossary. I'm not even going to stay there for long because I don't think it's very complete, but just give you some ideas how to read the TLAs. Okay, everyone, I think thank you so much for joining us, and have everyone should have a wonderful evening. Anyone else would like to say a final word?
Nope, thank you, everybody.
Okay. And thank you for Carol for managing the webinar. Thank you, Carol, for hosting us.
Everyone's thanking everyone in the chat.
Yes, and